And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we are going to be talking about the Celtics series against the Miami Heat. So this was a gentleman's sweep series, even though it wasn't really a gentleman's sweep, I guess This was a relatively easy series, I guess, for the Celtics, because I knew they were going to win in 4 or 5 games. I just thought it was going to be more so in 4 rather than it was going to be in 5. I did not expect the Miami Heat to be able to steal a game, but lo and behold, they were able to do it. So that's sort of how the series went. And this blowout win, it was 118-84. It sort of sums up exactly just the difference in overall skill from the Celtics roster compared to the Miami Heat roster, at least right now. Because Jason Tatum, throughout the entirety of this series, I don't think he really played that well. In fact, Paolo Banchero, he's actually averaging a lot better numbers than Jason Tatum in the postseason now, yet gets no recognition for it, by the way. And this team is still, with having less than Paolo Banchero production, the Celtics have been able to just dominate this Miami Heat team. And I understand that the Miami Heat, they don't have Jimmy Butler, but it's not just one player that composes the team, as you all know. And the difference in skill gap, because of this blowout win, and because of, a lot of the series, a lot of their wins have been relatively blowout wins against the Miami Heat. So there's really it's not really a surprise, I guess, because it's they've blown them out several other times before they played this game. In fact, every single game in this series was a blowout win against either side. And it really just showed the dynamic of both of the teams. It's either one team was going to be on or one team was not. And that was sort of like the story of this series. One team was really good, the other team was really bad. And I understand Nelson, that's a really dumb way to dumb it down, because it's obviously one team is going to be good and then the other team is going to be bad. That's how a series works. But what I mean by that is how the outcome of a lot of these games have been sort of decided, and a lot of them are decided before the fourth quarter even ends. And with that in mind, you have to be playing just that much better than the other team in order to hold that lead for 4 straight quarters in every single game. And that's sort of been the way that a lot of these that's sort of been the way that these matchups have been playing out against between the Celtics and the Miami Heat. It wasn't so much of a battle who's going to go on top. It was whoever started out hot was going to stay hot and stay there. And that sort of has to do that goes into the dynamic and how Boston's offense is, because they take a lot of 3-point shots, and the fact that they take a lot of 3-point shots either gives the other team more possessions to work with, or just racks up the score for the Boston Celtics, because it could essentially go either way. They either make it or they miss it. If they're making a lot of shots, then they're going to come out in a blowout win. If they're missing a lot of shots, then they're going to come out in a blowout loss. And that's been the story with this series. They haven't really found a real competition where it's in the fourth quarter, the game still hasn't really been decided and it's been close throughout the entirety of the game. They haven't really had that yet. And that being said, I'm not saying that there hasn't really been close moments in the game, but close moments late in the game or at least close moments throughout the entirety of the game where it's okay, well, obviously, these guys are going to win because these guys are hitting their shots. That's sort of been the story of the whole series. Whichever team was hitting shots was going to be the team that was going to win. And there was no real X factor, like how if you were to have Jimmy Butler on the team, that might have been an X factor to when the Celtics were hitting a lot of shots, because they didn't really have that X factor. When the Celtics were going on their runs and hitting a lot of shots and having a lot of blowout wins, the Heat didn't have Jimmy Butler to respond back to that high-powered offense and to respond back to sort of go on that run and things of that nature. They did not have that X factor on their team. So, and the series, obviously, it would have played a lot differently had they had that X factor with Jimmy Butler, and they've been going back and forth as the years have been going on. The Miami Heat beat them in 2020, then the Boston Celtics beat them in 2022, then the Miami Heat beat them again last year, and now the Celtics beat them again this year. They go back and forth every single time between, and most of the times, whichever of those two teams beats the other in their matchup is the team that ends up going to the finals. So the Celtics and the Miami Heat have sort of been dominating that little like trip to the finals thing. But that's really been like the story with these blowout games. And the fact that they haven't really had a competitive series yet is a good thing and it's a bad thing, because it's a good thing in the sense that, okay, they never had a close competitive game yet, so they've been the more dominant team 9 out of 10 times. But okay, what about when they do have that close game? How are they going to perform given the fact that they haven't had a close game in the postseason yet? And the first time, if you're in a situation for the first time, it might rattle you. And let's say that first time, let's say the first close game that they had happens in a Game 7 when they desperately need it, and not a single person there knows how to handle the pressure because not a single person there was used to dealing with any kind of pressure in the postseason. And it's obviously it could bring good luck or it could bring bad luck depending on how you look at it and depending on what your viewpoint on what your view is in the series. So let's talk about I've talked more about the series, more so than I talked about the game itself. So Drew Holiday, he ended the game with 10 points. Tatum ended with 16 and 12. Derek White ended with 25. Jaylen Brown also ended with 25. And since Kristaps Porzingis wasn't in the game because he did go down last time due to injury, Al Horford substituted him in, and he ended up scoring 8 points and 8 rebounds on 23 minutes. And he shot 3 for 4 from the field, so he was very useful for the team. It's not like he was, he wasn't doing much for the Celtics as a starter, because he was definitely helping. And there was also off the bench, Sam Hauser ended the game with 17 points and was 6 for 10 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. So again, a very dominant performance from the Celtics and a very dominant team performance as a whole. They didn't really need an outstanding performance from anyone. They didn't need an outstanding performance from Tatum. They didn't need an outstanding performance from Brown to get the job done. And with the Heat, on the other hand, the only real contributor for them was Bam Adebayo, and even then, 23 points on 26 shots is not something to be proud of. Tyler Hero, he also produced for the team 15 points, but again, 15 points on 19 shots is not something to really brag about either. And he shot 1 for 8 from the 3 as well, so, obviously. And the Miami Heat, they were only able to hit 3 3-pointers. As a team in this game, they only hit 3 3-pointers. Obviously, you're not going to win any type of game in this era hitting only 3 3-pointers. And that was the biggest difference maker in this game, the 3-point difference. And it's kind of ironic how the Miami Heat, they had one of their best 3-point shooting games in TD Garden, which was Game 2. And now they come here having one of their worst 3-point games in TD Garden, which is Game 5. And it's a little bit of irony mixed there, but yeah, that was really, really bad shooting coming in from the Miami Heat, and part of the reason why they weren't able to win in this game, if that wasn't abundantly clear. And let me just go ahead. I'm just looking at the box scores. Anything else that I have to say about these games? Any notes that I have? Right. So obviously, the best player in the series was Jason Tatum. So at the series as a whole, best player was Jason Tatum. He averaged 21 points per game, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, along with 42, 29, and 80 shooting splits on 56% true shooting. Again, he was the best player for the series. But when you're on the Celtics and you got to share the ball, there's not really like much production to be going around. There's not really like crazy. There wasn't going to be that many crazy, outstanding performances in this first round because everybody else was going to share the ball between all of the Celtics. That's just how the offense works. And again, like I mentioned earlier, how Jason Tatum, like Paolo Banchero was averaging better numbers than Jason Tatum. Like these numbers coming in from Tatum, given his reputation and how like fans consider him. I mean, he was top 5 in MVP voting, for crying out loud. Considering how fans like have him ranked, this is kind of a meh performance coming in from him. But at the same time, I somewhat understand why this performance is like, it needed to happen because like, you need to share the ball with the rest of your players. But face value, 21 points per game, 10 rebounds, and more so the scoring production, 21 points per game on 42 and 29 and 80 shooting splits. That's something that a lot of people are definitely going to like jar at and are going to make comments at, but people forget that Kobe shot a lot worse in a lot more playoff series. And with the shots that Jason Tatum takes, it kind of makes sense that the shooting splits are going to be just as bad because like his shot selection is also as bad. And his gameplay style, like the way he plays, it's sort of like it enforces a lot of bad shots to be taken. Like, the Mamba mentality and like the Mamba play style. Kobe took a lot of really bad shots and a lot of difficult shots. I am the biggest Kobe fan, but I am not going to be the blind bat and say that he did not take a couple of bad shots because he did. They went in, but they were bad shots. And that's sort of why like the shooting splits are like really low, and as the best player on the best team, that's something that you really can't afford unless you're like expecting to get criticism. And like you're going to get criticism if you shoot that badly. Even though I don't really think that's really fair because his on and off numbers, the team was plus 21 when he was on the court compared to being plus 2 when he's not. Obviously, the team is very, very good, which is why they have that plus 2. But plus 21 compared to plus 2, that is a very huge jump. Now, obviously, the Finals LeBron Award, that the best player on the worst team. That's what I call it. I call it Finals LeBron. That goes to Bam. He averaged 22 points per game, 9 rebounds, and almost 4 assists on 50, 20, 70 shooting splits. And obviously, like you really couldn't ask for more from him because he was playing with a relatively injured squad without Jimmy Butler. And obviously, if Jimmy Butler was on the team, I think he would have been the Finals LeBron. But, he did all he could, averaging what he could. And the sixth man of the series has got to go to Al Horford. I mean, he averaged 8 points per game, 7 rebounds, and was shooting 59, 40, and 50 from the field that's a 69.5 true shooting percentage, which is very, very elite and very good coming in from a role player, one that's substituting for Kristaps, no less. Now, and I do want to bring attention to Derek White, who is he gets special praise because he dropped 38 points in Game 4 to go up 3-1, and then he decides to drop 25 points to close out the series in Game 5. So I definitely wanted to talk about him a little bit, and ever since Terrence Mann had his ridiculous 40-point game in the playoffs just out of nowhere, I just wanted to I like sort of paying attention to a lot of like the stand-up players that might not get enough respect that they deserve for their performance. And it's like, obviously like Derek White, to the Celtics, he might be a fan favorite. But to the casual fan, a lot of people might not know Derek White like that. So I just wanted to bring attention to him and his game and like just how important he really is to the Boston Celtics. Because I mean, being that that X factor or that wild card that can give you 38 points or can get you 25 in an elimination game or in a game that you desperately need it, that is a very good X factor to have, especially since he's a very good defender as well. In the postseason, that's extremely valuable because that way you don't have to constantly rely on Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. You have that other option that's not really the first attention to detail on the game plan. Like, when you're going up against the Celtics, the first step to the game plan isn't, oh, how do we stop Derek White? It's, oh, how do we stop Tatum or Jaylen Brown? And so having that option, like that scoring option, is extremely valuable. And it could be the edge that they need to finally win the championship this year. But that's basically like what I have for this series as of what it is. And like, again, relatively easy series for the Boston Celtics, and unfortunate that the Miami Heat, they couldn't be healthy in this series, because I would have loved to see Jimmy Butler play in these games. But regardless, it was, win is a win, and they'll take the series win, and they're going to go on and play between either the Bucks or the Pacers in the next round of the postseason, because the series is still going on, so we still have to see who they're going to play. But right now they get a little bit of a rest period because the series is still surprisingly going on between the Pacers and the Bucks. The series probably would have started a lot sooner rather than later if the Bucks didn't end up winning in Game 5. So that's basically, those are the teams that so I believe in the Eastern Conference, that's one of the only teams that ended their series. I believe, that's the only team I think that ended their series for the Eastern Conference. And isn't that funny? The series that started out last out of all the playoff series ended up finishing first in the Eastern Conference. Could you have thought of a better script? Honestly, could you have thought of a better script than that? Where it's every single playoff game that happens before that for the Eastern Conference is still going on, but that Celtics series is the one that's over. That is ridiculous to me. But that's enough of that, and that's enough of the Boston Celtics for one segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the fourth segment, where I give a quick preview of the playoff games that are going to be going down tonight, as well as the Knicks and the Sixers playoff game, because there's a big story generated about that, and I think I'm going to cover that first before I talk about the Bucks and the Pacers, just because of the situation that the Sixers have to deal with right now. So I will be right back after this short break, and stay tuned.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.